Morning, welcome to Allotment Flower Garden. So we've hit quite a big moment in the growing calendar with flowers and plants are concerned. Well, all plants really, is we slipped into autumn now. That makes a really big difference to your gardening and your maintenance this time of year from summer. Obviously things like your watering now you'll be reducing, if not more or less totally stopping. Because as the days get shorter, the soil gets colder and it holds more moisture and you don't want to rot your plants off. So your baskets and your tubs will still need it, but your garden plants, if you have had to water, then more or less that'll be stopped now. So we're coming into autumn, Dan.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do now, we've got these dahlias here. These are light and lady in red. If we keep deadheading these, we can keep these in flower. These will go into November, so these have got a good 8 weeks left yet if you keep deadheading them. So it's just a case of taking them right off, them spent flowers, and cutting them back. And any flowers like this one that are just going over the... So if you leave them, you just end up with petals all over and a bit of a mess. Yep. So like I said, these are dahlias. These are a long day plant, so realistically these want 12 hours of daylight to be in the full pomp.
Yeah.
So they'll be fading now as the days fade, and obviously once we alter clocks in October. So what happens then is we have short day plants. So you have your long days, your short days. You have a day neutral, but don't worry about that. And we'll move on to chrysanthemums, which are a short day plant. So what I'm getting at is that extending your seasons. If you can plant some short days as well as long days, you'll get flowering for longer. Withstanding any really severe frosts, these will still go up to about beginning of December.
Yeah.
You know, so you'll still have some flower on them then. Right, what can we do now then to be extending the season? Well, a bed straight in front of you, Dan, they've got planted out this week. So they were grown from seed, so we've got some wallflowers. They'll begin as sunflower from early spring up until about May time. But one of the main things we can do at this time of year is propagation. Propagation, basically sowing seeds and taking cuttings. It's a prime time for it. And it's a simple way, with a bit of knowledge, to get a lot of plants from one plant and really extend your stock. So I'll give you an example of that with some penstemons, what we did this year. So all this edge here, this is penstemon raven. These all come off one plug plant. Yep. Didn't take years. These plants aren't a year old. You know, it was last summer when I got that plug plant. Grew it on, bulked it up a bit in a 2-litre pot. It's a multi-purpose compost. Then took cuttings, potted, monstered rooted, potted them up, kept them on through the winter and planted these out this spring. So it's that simple. So we'll have a look at some cuttings, what I've been doing this last week, and I'll show you how to take some. So as I say, it's a busy time for getting your plants propagated and some cuttings done. So if you want to come and have a look in here, Dan, we've got quite a selection of cuttings what's been done this week. So we've got some Ceanothus, Californian lilac, some of the pot mums. We've had some cuttings off the chrysams, penstemons, scavola, which is a basket plant, but you can root it now, get it through the winter in a cold greenhouse. And then the last two what I did was some pieris, which I'll show you the mother plants in a moment. Yeah. Small leaf. And a new plant for the garden, what we've just got this week, which were euonymus white spires and some lavender. You can never have enough lavender. So yeah, so right, there's a plant outside what I got this year and I've really took to. It's one of the ordered geraniums, one of the cranesbills at Brookside, and I really want some cuttings off that for next year. So we'll pop out, Dan. I'll show you how I do it. We'll come back in here and then we'll get them into some perlite. Okay. So this is the plant I was mentioning to you just now. This is geranium Brookside. They're really good plants, they're worth the money. In sheltered spots, ground cover. The flowers are absolutely stunning. You get a massive flower and they just keep flowering. Keep deadheading, they keep flowering. Right, there's a few ways we could do this. We could divide it as the clump gets bigger, but I don't want to wait for that. I want to get some cuttings going now. So what am I looking for? Well, the first thing you don't want to do is take anything that's got a flower on it. Avoid that because the energy is going into the flower. So I'm looking for some non-flowering shoots. We'll take the flower off that because that is ideal actually. I'll just clip it there. And also there's a flowering stem there. We'll lose that and we'll lose them buds. We'll only do 3 or 4 for now and then I'll come back to it. I'm struggling to find them that are non-flowering, it's that profuse. I'm looking for like a small growth that looks like a small version of the overall plant.
So about that one
there. Yeah, that would be ideal. Again, like I said, they're really well in flower, so I'm going to have to just nip some flower buds off, which will stop that happening. I think we'll have that one. So I'll get shut of any foliage. Right, we'll bob these in the greenhouse then. We'll get them rooted. Right, so a good tip when you're doing cuttings, what I've learned to do as well is, you get in your mind, you've seen a plant you want to get a cutting, especially if it's in your own garden or something like that, is don't take the cuttings and have them sat there while you're getting your medium, what you're going to root and in ready. Do it beforehand. These are just going straight into some perlite. No compost, because we're having to move away from peat compost in 2023, so we might as well start now. This isn't new to me. I often root cuttings in perlite, they do root well. Just got to make sure that you've got it nice and damp before you put your cuttings in. I'll just make an incision with a little piece of wood, and then it falls out. A little bit deeper. I found with perlite as well, you get a really good root system on them. And then when they get rooted, and if you want to go into the next pot with them, the choice is yours really, whether you go into peat and coir, or you could go into a soil-based compost to John Innes. Yeah. Or still, you could still use a multi-purpose.
And same again, obviously, planting around edge at pot. Yeah. Obviously, that's just for the heat to help benefit.
That's right, yeah, because it being black, it'll take that bit more heat into it, a bit more temperature, and that warm around the roots. The roots, yeah, will help it out, will help it to root that little bit faster. Again, with your cuttings, just make sure you don't take anything that's dead or diseased or damaged off. You don't get a good cutting off a bad plant. Yeah. I think I've said that before. But basically, there's not much left in your garden at this time of year that you can't get a cutting off. I'll give you a quick example, Dan. Going back a few years, I worked for what at the time I think was the third largest nursery in Europe. Right. And they took me into the greenhouse where they did their propagation, which were about 4 times the size of this allotment. Yeah. There were over 250,000 cuttings in that allotment. Sorry, in that greenhouse. And I just happened to say to the guy who owned it, I said, what do you do? I said, for anything you want to root and it needs that little bit of heat or, you know, a bit more technical stuff. I'm now waiting for this big profound answer. And he just said, well, that's easy, we don't grow it. And it stuck with me that. You know, there's plenty of stuff out in your garden and roundabouts that is stunning. Yeah. And it's easy to propagate without going into really technical stuff to grow. So right, another way we can do it, Dan, with some herbaceous perennials at this time of year, your cottage garden plants, is we can skip that rooting bit, the cuttings, because they've already done it for us. Really? I'll show you what we mean. Right, Dan, so we've come down to this little herbaceous border I've got. The plant we've got here is a geum. This one's Mrs. Bradshaw. Yeah. It's a red flowering one, and we've got the yellow one just to the right of it here. Well, I'll just mention as well, like I was saying about the deadheading, this little salvia, it didn't have a flower on it a month ago. I've kept deadheading it, I've cut it back. Yeah. Don't be scared with salvias to cut them back, and we're getting some more flower now. Same with a couple of penstemons, we're still getting flower on them, even though we're getting into autumn now. So that deadheading's quite a thing. Right, what I'm going to do with these is a lot of herbaceous stuff, because they're not a one woody stem plant, you know, they're not a shrub. We can divide them. So, and it's good practice to divide your herbaceous stuff once every 3 years, because a lot of the time they'll get too big. You'll get them with their only flowering in middle, or middle rots back, and they're just flowering on edges. So they benefit from being divided. You need to get under a clump, plenty of roots on that. And just put him on this bed so I can see a bit then. I'm just going to clear these roots up a bit. The old-fashioned way was to go in the middle and put 2 forks in and do it back to back, but I like to get it up and then you can have a look and see what's what. You can see there's some plants here. I'll clean that up, take all this dead growth off. Nice root system. You know, something like that to go and buy now, you're probably talking between £8 and £10.
Yeah, it makes sense, doesn't it?
Just that bit of know-how. And just pull clumps of it away with my hand. Then, if you want to do this now, I mean, now or spring is really the time to be doing it, but you're not sure where you're going to put them. If you've got a bit of bare soil in a border somewhere that you're not doing anything with, dig a trench out, stick them in, clean them up first. So what, we've got 4 plants there done now.
Yeah.
I reckon we can at least get 2 more out of this. Should have put gloves on, but there you go. 7 plants, 70 quid's worth. Then just make sure, if you're doing it that way, you get the roots well covered up, and that'll stop frost getting to them. Right, also, same as that, that'll make a plant. You could put these into 2 litre pots or 1 litre pot.
Yeah.
Pot them up, overwinter them in pots, and then plant them out in spring. If you've got a certain place where you know where they definitely want to go, you know, you've got an idea in mind, plant them straight there.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing to do with these type of plants as well, a lot of perennials, is avoid planting them in 2s. So go for 1, 3 or 5s, because odd numbers look a lot more natural.
Yeah,
herbaceous
rather than
stuff.
an even number.
Yeah. So that's that. I mean, there's loads you can do that with. The red hot poker, you'll be able to do it with that. That'll split the Overgeum. The phlox. There's some crocosmia knocking about, that likes to be split about every 3 to 5 years. Them little canners, you know, I think there's about 5 canners here. If I lift them and split them, they're so small because they didn't come out last year, they went out way through winter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your daylilies, you can split them. They say it takes them a year to all get that big clump again. But you're filling your beds, you're extending your seasons again. You know, you're hoping get stuff for planted out earlier next year, and you'll get in flower earlier. And as we'll go through next spring, there's the Chelsea chop what we can do as well with herbaceous stuff, which we'll come to. Oh, just to mention as well, just quickly before we go, it was our local flower show, well, vegetable and flower show last week up at Rotherham in Clifton Park. So Dan took a few photos and we'll put those on for you to have a look at. Thank you.